Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 2 of season 3 of Hit It Where They Mow, Talking Golf in Texas. This is a really special show today because it's authentically Texas, and we're going to have some fun talking about the most extraordinary friendship and the celebration of an incredible accomplishment some 70 years ago, and that was when Mr. Ben Hogan won his third major in a row in 1953 when he won the British Open at Carnoustie in Scotland. And my special guests are Paul Leonard to my immediate left and Mr. Courtney Connell to my further left. But before we get them talking about their trip to Scotland, I want to thank my sponsors for making season 3 a reality. And that is Niagara Plumbing, or Niagara Conservation as it's officially known. But they have the low flow toilets. And here's Tricia to tell you more about Niagara Conservation.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks, Niagara, for your support of so many nonprofits, including the Volunteers of America 125 plus years of national support for those in need. Are you tired of compromising between performance and water efficiency in your bathroom? Well, Niagara has the perfect solution for you. With almost 50 years of expertise, they've mastered the art of creating top-notch toilets, bidets, and more that save water without sacrificing performance. Don't miss out on this bathroom revolution and upgrade your space today. Niagara products are available nationwide.
I also want to thank Veritex Bank, which is the Golf Bank of Texas. Mr. Malcolm Holland, Mr. Martin Thomas, and all the good folks at Veritex Community Bank. They understand personal banking. They also understand small commercial lending. If you want to bank with a true Texas bank that loves golf, bank with Veritex Community Bank. And I don't want to forget my golf courses. One of them's actually in Oklahoma, but it's just up the road in Ardmore, Dornick Hills Country Club. Perry Maxwell, one of the most esteemed architects of all time, this was his farm. This was his home course. And you can play it. You can get a non-resident membership there, and it's only 90 minutes from Dallas. And then close to my heart, in my old stomping grounds in East Texas, the Tempest Golf Club. East Texas golf as it was meant to be. Water, trees, hills, just about 2 miles off of Interstate 20 outside of Longview, about a 2-hour commute from Dallas. I want to thank these sponsors, and I am so excited to welcome you, Mr. Paul Leonard, I almost said Texas Links on the Air. That was my old radio show. Hit It Where They Mow, Talking Golf in Texas. And of course, Courtney Connell, the head golf professional for many years at Mira Vesta Country Club in Fort Worth. I want to present it as this extraordinary friendship, and it's between Marvin Leonard, more or less the father of the Colonial Country Club, and also of Shady Oaks Country Club, the man who brought bent grass to Texas because he had experienced it up in the Northeast at some of those good courses. This friendship between him and Ben Hogan and how it kind of culminated in this trip you took. But tell us a little bit about your memories or your thoughts about Mr. Leonard and Ben Hogan and their friendship as we get rolling here.
Well, I was born into a golfing family, and Marvin, as you know, took up golf because the doctor said if he didn't, he's going to go crazy. So he joined Glen Garden at that time, and that was probably back in the late 20s or something like that. And I didn't come on the scene. I was born in 50, and they finished Shady Oaks in 58, and that's when I met Mr. Hogan. That's when we started going to Shady Oaks. That's where he was at the time.
Right.
So I really didn't know much about their connection at that point. I do know that they both came from a poor upbringing. Of course, Marvin and his brother, my grandfather, Obie, came to Fort Worth in 1918 and started Leonard Brothers, a little 50 by 100 foot building right by the courthouse. So that was their start in business, and grew that to a real enterprise. But they were doing real well about the time Ben came on the scene. So that relationship started to gel when he was at Glen Garden, and Ben started caddying for him and grew from that point.
I think Ben would have been probably a teenager at that point.
He was born in 12.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know the friendship grew from that caddy-player relationship.
Right.
And but it, there's been talk that Marvin Leonard sponsored Ben Hogan. He did a little bit, but not so much. It was more of a friendship than a sponsorship. I know he did help him out a little bit financially.
Yeah, he did a lot more than most people realize.
Okay.
Tim Scott, who wrote a really good book about Mr. Hogan.
That's right.
There's a story in there about the time when Ben first got started with his company, and the first production of clubs was not to his liking. So he had them all cut up, thrown in the dumpster, and he told his partner about it, and his partner said, "I quit." So Ben was in the bar in Colonial, I think probably drinking, and had a bad case of the poor me's, and Marvin walked up and said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, I've just lost my company." And he said, I'll be back in a minute. So he went, and he came back in about 10 minutes and put a check on the bar, a blank check, and he said, "Make sure you got enough in there to get you through this thing."
Wow.
And he did all kinds of stuff like that, Marvin did for Ben. And but he liked him. He kind of took him as a stepson, and just saw his potential. And that was just part of the relationship people don't know about.
Right. And I was looking, I kind of want to move over to the trip that you guys took, kind of transition into that. I was looking, Ben Hogan was 40 when he had that great year in 1953. He had some lean years learning to play golf. And you mentioned his partner, and I'll name the guy because, you can't really blame him.
No.
His name was Pollard Simon. And the reason I know that is Don January told me he hitchhiked from Denton to Lakewood Country Club to see a match between Ben Hogan, Pollard Simon, Harry Todd, and the great Dizzy Dean.
Oh, man.
Out at Lakewood. And so he said at that point, Ben was hitting the high fade, a beautiful tee shot, because he was known for fighting the hook as a young player.
Yeah.
And but let's transition and bring Courtney into this. This was the 70th anniversary, 2023, of this epic year that Hogan had in 53, when he played in 3 majors and won 3 majors. And he didn't play in the 4th one because he went over to England or to Scotland on a boat, and he couldn't get back in time to play in that long, drawn-out match play that was the PGA Championship. And so I'll let you set it up, and then we'll go over to Courtney. So you had this idea of doing something to commemorate this wonderful year.
I'll give you a little background on that. I went over to, my first trip to Scotland was in '82.
Okay.
And we played Carnoustie, and my caddy was the greenskeeper's son, and I had an Augusta towel on my bag, which not many people had Augusta towels in '82.
Right.
They hadn't started that big marketing program.
Right.
And I gave him that towel after my round. It's like I gave him $1 million. Well, we went back 3 years later, and I went with my father-in-law and Mark Anthony, who you know, and his dad is Jim Anthony, and we had played the old course the day before that, and I got food poisoning that night, and so we were going to play Carnoustie the next day. So I went over there with them, but I sat around the starters shack the whole time while they played and told stories about Fort Worth and Mr. Hogan and all that.
Man.
So they wanted to hear everything I could tell them, So I kind of put a seed in me, about a special appreciation for Carnoustie. And back then, all it was a starter shack.
Yeah.
So fast forward to last year, I had a set of Hogan McGregor Irons and Woods, complete set, that would have been of the same era when he was playing McGregor Irons and Woods, that he would have won the tournament with. And I said, I bet those people would like to have these clubs. So I wrote the historical committee at Carnoustie. I said, I've got this set of clubs. Would y'all like to have them? They said, yes, come on over, present them to it. And the more I thought about it, I said, this is a good opportunity for us to go share what we do to honor his legacy in Fort Worth. And we ought to include the groups that do that, which was, or is, the Hogan Foundation, the Ben Hogan Awards, and the First Tee, and Courtney to represent what North Texas PGA is doing in this area, and Tim Scott, who wrote the book. So that was the body of our contingent that went over there to do that, just to share with them, encourage what they're doing, and learn about what they're doing too. That was the genesis of the trip. So we went over with our wives, and we all paid our way. This was not sponsored by any clubs or anything, and had a wonderful trip.
I can imagine. I know when I had my radio show, the last time they had the British Open there, we sponsored a trip, or one of my sponsors of the show was the World War II Museum out of New Orleans. They had Lanny Watkins and John Mahaffey were doing this trip to Normandy and then up to Carnoustie. And that's the one Molinaro won, I guess 2018 or something, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Well, Courtney, I bet you were thrilled to go over on this trip to Carnoustie, Scotland.
You know, I really was. It was an honor, privilege, and as you know, golf packs a lot of passion and a lot of emotion. And we just kind of felt that throughout our journey and our experience. It was a slow, enjoyable crescendo of just absorbing everything. And, you know, I tried to just sometimes pause and really reflect and think about what I was being able to witness and enjoy. And then, you know, one of the top things about this beautiful game are the relationships. And when you meet somebody, you become a long life friend. But what it stood for and what it meant, I'm very proud of the Texas fingerprints that are on the game of golf.
Yes.
And I still email my caddy about every other week. Scott Reed was one of the best caddies I've ever had. But, you know, I would walk the course in the mornings, and I just wanted to go out there and experience it. I tried to take everything in. I saw how hard the crew was working on the golf course. Nobody else is out there. It was really early in the morning. They could cut corners if they wanted to. They didn't. I saw the attention to detail. But it was a very, you know, Paul hit the nail on the head about a very special spirit. There was a very special feeling about being there. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I love the history of the game. Mm-hmm. And kind of got chills on the first hole walking down the fairway. It was a beautiful, we got very fortunate on the weather.
Did you need a sweater?
Really good. In the mornings, yeah, you did. Yeah.
That's what I love about
it. Was
the hottest it ever gets over there is about 75.
It was 58 to 63.
Yeah. I remember when Mr. Leonard actually called me. We had just wrapped up the Texas Joe Black Cup matches at Maridoe, and we had just finished with the ceremonies, and he called and asked me if I wanted to go. And just when I didn't think it could get any better than watching our team win the Texas Joe Black Cup matches, here is an invitation to go to Carnoustie and be a part of this very unique and very special celebration.
Yeah, how long were you guys like in Carnoustie for several days, or?
About 4.5 days we're there, and we went over to another course where Mr. Hogan practiced, Pam Muir.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
That was very special.
Yeah,
and they also celebrated his fine play. They had wonderful memorabilia in his clubhouse, and they just had a great amount of respect for all the right reasons for him to bounce back after that tragic accident. You know. And for so many people to count him out for many years to come back and do what he did. And I think they were in awe of how he played the game and how he embraced it and the tough conditions and, you know, how he played hole number 5, you know, 4 days in a row or 4 rounds in a row.
Tell us about that.
Well, he's one of the few people in the history of the game, the history of the Open, that improved his score every day.
Right.
And the way he played number 5. And they had a very nice touch for us when we played the Hogan hole, number 5, the par 5. We played it with Schlesinger, the little English golf ball, the smaller diameter.
So this is the hole where he...
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was 6. So I thought that was something I didn't know about. But that's fine.
It may have been 6. It's par 5.
It's the par 5 where he hit it between the OB.
Number 6 is the par 5.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you. Number 6. Thank you.
Because I had a little 14-year-old caddy walk me down. This is Mr. Hogan's divot. it,
Yeah.
100 years later. No, but I mean,
Yeah.
they embrace that history,
really
as
do.
you know.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, it's just a very important part of
Yeah.
the Open Championship and major championships.
Yeah.
And what he established is still celebrated today, and it's just very impressive. It speaks of his backbone, his strength, and his grit. And I do believe he really wanted to play hard, and he won by 4 shots. And I think he didn't want to. I think he wanted to avoid a playoff just because it was going to mean 36 holes, and that's tough after what he's been through.
They had a 36-hole playoff.
Yeah, they would have.
Yeah,
they would have.
yeah. Wow.
But
They're
so he
serious about their
just
golf.
forged ahead and got a 4-shot victory, and here we are still talking about it today.
Well, I was just going to say, I do a Bible study on Thursday morning, and it came up today about preparation.
Yes.
If you prepare and things don't go your way, you're able to accept the results
Correct.
a little better than if you don't prepare and you get surprised or things turn out really poorly. But that was Ben Hogan. Not only was he probably the greatest ball striker in history golf, but he was meticulous in his planning. He played all the percentages.
Yes.
He did all the things that, like Scott Fawcett tells you to do now, right? He did that not intuitively, but through, I don't know, through being a genius or whatever. I don't know.
It's course management.
Course management, yeah.
He had great discipline.
Yeah. I, as a kid, remember watching him hit balls because I lived right there on number 11 at Shady Oaks. And I'd go down there and sit on the ground and just watch him hit balls till it got boring because he never missed a shot. And I remember one time, it's probably one of the first times I was over there watching him hit balls. And I must have been 10 years old and I didn't know any etiquette. I went over and pulled one of the clubs out of his bag and started swinging it, and he gave me that hard look like that. And I kept swinging it, so he went back to hitting balls. But we had a special relationship back
That
then.
is so cool.
I was really fortunate, blessed, to spend as much one-on-one time as I did with him.
Right. So Marvin Leonard was your great uncle, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Marty's done a really good job of
yes.
carrying on the family legacy in golf.
Yes.
She's done a beautiful job with that, with Leonard Golf Links and everything she's done. And Star Hollow managing that too. She's done a really good job with that.
Right. And you made a point, it caught me off guard. McGregor clubs. Let's go back to 1953. There's really Spalding, Wilson, and McGregor, right? That's it. And I don't know why it never occurred to me that he was a McGregor man. But he was, I guess. Did he stay with them most of his career until he started his own company?
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess they had those cord grips on there, right?
Yeah.
And he never wore a glove, to my
That's
knowledge.
They're a handsome set of clubs. They're on display very nicely. They really catch your eye when you go over there. It's worth the trip to go over there.
You know, the Scots and the Brits, they love the pageantry. So walk us through the ceremony, if you would. Like you get over there, you get situated, and you're going to present these clubs to this wonderful golf club. So can you kind of paint the scenario for us?
I shipped the clubs early for
Oh, you
their
did? Okay.
display.
Okay.
And there's a picture of that.
Okay.
The viewers will see that.
Okay.
But we did take a club that was in a shadow box that the Hogan Foundation gave us, one of his drivers.
Okay.
So that was presented. They had a banquet for us one night,
Nice.
and we presented that to them. You know, it was just.
Did you toast the king?
No, we didn't.
Oh, that's right. We're in Scotland. They're a little
it was-
they're a little slow about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was made up of the various captains of the various golf clubs
wow.
in Carnoustie.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Carnoustie is a public entity. I don't know if you knew that. It's
No.
part of the park systems in Angus. But they have these little clubs. They have a women's club, and then they'll have 2 or 3 men's clubs. And a lot of it is based on kind of the social class.
Okay.
And so they invited all the captains of these clubs to come participate in this event. And what we did is we had a round of golf where we played against their captains. And our whole entourage played, and they brought all the captains from the different clubs. So we got to meet them and play golf with them. And that night we had a little, I wouldn't call it a banquet, but whatever it was,
It was
Courtney.
just a very nice dinner, very warm
nice
dinner.
Yeah.
And they got up and shared with us what they're doing. And I want Courtney to talk about that, what
Well-
they're doing with their young people.
Okay.
And then we presented things to them. I gave them a book that Mr. Hogan had signed for me of his lessons. Gave them an original cap and stuff for their collection there. Then they gave us, they gave me this putter
I saw
that
that.
was made in 1895 by the Simpsons and by the Williamsons, by the Trevor Williamson. His dad was with Simpson.
Let me see that.
And that's a
beautiful.
little relic I brought home with me.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
But
I was
they-
going to say Laurie Octoloni made it, but
but our mission was kind of a give back, and darn if we got over there and they started giving back right at us. It was a wonderful exchange of ideas, encouragement, and what they're doing, and
that's so nice.
what they're
That's
doing
so
with their
nice.
young people. Courtney, why don't you share with them? 'Cause that
Sure,
was really
absolutely.
impressive.
Before you do
Yes.
that, just for everyone, the captain of the golf club, what would be the corollary here? The president of the club?
Chairman of the board, president of the club.
Yeah, it's not like the club secretary who tends to the financial details. It's a person who's part of the membership that's honored by being the captain or the
Yeah,
chairman
the
of the
president
board.
or chairman of the
Yeah,
board. Exactly.
yeah.
Good point.
right. And so
Well, I was just very impressed. They have their golf professional there is Keir McNichol. He's 39-year-old professional. He's a +2 handicap, and he's just a very humble young gentleman and a very, very strong professional. And he is very passionate about growing the game. And he has taken, I think, their junior program from 12 to a few hundred juniors.
wow.
And that's the beauty of getting together and sharing best practices and importing. And I don't know of any other industry that does it as well as the golf industry. We're always sharing our best practices, and we're always cheering other golf associations or golf clubs or various sections in the PGA, really cheering them along, and everyone's trying to help each other. That dinner was a very special dinner. Many people got up, spoke from the heart, talked about what the game of golf meant to them, and just really knowing that we're immersed in this incredible history. And Carnoustie is very respected. It's many times has been stated by many Hall of Fame golf writers that it's the toughest test out of the Open Championship lineups. And I would say that's probably a fair statement. I haven't played all the courses, but played that. We played it on a nice day, and it was a test. So I can only imagine when we get the Scottish wind coming off that ocean that was right behind us, what it would be like.
And let 'em- when they grow the rough.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me ask you this about comparing over there to here. Like I said, I had a young kid caddying for me. He was a bag toter. He was not a grizzly old caddy that could tell you, to hit a 5-iron or whatever. So they kind of, at that point, this is almost 40 years ago, 1986 was when I was over there, 37 years ago. They came up through the ranks caddying.
Yes.
Do they still have a caddy program for kids?
I believe so, and they
And
have
we
a very
don't do
good-
that so much here. Yeah.
No, it's changed quite a bit with different workman's comp challenges and things like that, economics as well. I love their caddy program over there. They had a really bumper crop of talent over there, very enthusiastic, very professional, and I really enjoyed that. And it is a joy to play the game like that, because that's how it all started out.
That's right.
And how the golf courses were designed back then was very close tee to green proximity. They didn't think about golf carts. There wasn't golf carts back then, so you designed it for walking. And
There wasn't housing development.
Right,
either,
it's just a real joy to walk off a green, go to the tee box, and keep forging ahead, keep swinging at it.
Right.
And I think also one of the differences, and I don't mean any of this in a negative or critical way whatsoever, but it seems like the golf courses in Scotland and Ireland and that part of the world, you've got to hit all the shots. And it's sometimes more of a finesse game and a lot of determination to forge ahead. Whereas I think that we've had a little bit more of a bomb and gouge type effect on some of our tours, and power has been celebrated a little bit more than finesse. Again, I don't mean that critically. That's my perspective. That may not be accurate, but they use all the clubs, and that's not just a bomb and gouge and hit it anywhere and still make birdie. the golf courses were absolutely beautiful, and the settings were it was just really incredible. I got where, when I was walking in the mornings, I finally just put my camera down, my phone down, and just thought I'd soak it up and take it all in.
Exactly. Yeah, the game is still walked over there for the most part. Did you guys walk?
Well,
Yes.
I walked the first
You have a
18,
trick knee, right? Yeah.
but I had a brand new knee, and I walked. It was tough, so they let me have a cart the next 3 courses. We played Panmure
Buggy,
the
as
next
they call
day.
it.
Yeah.
By the way, they have a Hogan hole there.
Do they?
And on each course, on Carnoustie and Panmure, there's only one man that holes are named after, and it's Hogan.
Yeah.
You don't hear a James Braid hole or a Donald Ross hole or whatever.
Wow.
He's that, well respected. Then we played, went to Dornoch and played Royal Dornoch, which is a magnificent course.
I heard it's wonderful.
It is.
I've never been that far
It's a
north.
bucket list course.
Yeah.
And then we played Castle Stewart that Gil Hance designed
Okay.
outside of Inverness. Those are the
Okay.
4 courses we played.
Wonderful. So everything just fell in place for you on this idea, didn't it?
It was just unbelievable. Yeah.
And I was going to say that over there, you want to walk, and I remember Archie Baird, the historian there at Gullen. I was telling him how impressed I was with the new power walking carts that you didn't have to push. He says, "Don't you have those over in the U.S.?" And I said, "Well, we normally ride over there." And he goes, "Oh, for Pete's sake!" He was very disgusted with me, and I said, "Well, it's like 100 degrees in Texas." He says, "Take off more clothes." He was a piece of work, but they revere the history of it. He wrote a book called Golf on Gullen Hill, how golf more or less started in Holland. It was with Calvin. They hit a ball or hit a puck or something across the ice to a stake. The Scots liked it, but they didn't have any ice in Scotland, so they started playing it outdoors, and they had to hit it further and harder, and that's where they came upon hickory as being the best substance to make golf clubs from. It had the strong, sturdy shaft, and of course it evolved from there. But it's hard to describe the feeling you get over there. That, like you say, it is spiritual. It is. It's a feeling. I've had it different places. I've had it at St. Andrews. One time I got to go to Gettysburg. Someone said, "Would you like to go see Gettysburg?"
Very nice.
And it was toward the end of the day, and I felt a feeling. I just felt like, I'm feeling history here.
Very much so.
Yeah, and so that is a really great thing that you did, and I'm glad that you were on the receiving end too. And you told me something. I'm not trying to preach to our audience, obviously, but you said it was totally philanthropic. There was no agenda or anything. You just wanted to give something to them to remember.
It was a give back trip. Yes,
Right.
it was.
Right.
And that doesn't mean necessarily money. People think philanthropy is tied to money.
No.
I mean, time is philanthropic because you'll never get that back.
Right.
And it was a great feeling giving back those people.
Like that master's towel. It wasn't a monetary value. That
That's
guy,
right.
he wanted a towel that came from Augusta,
And
Georgia.
we went to the old course the Sunday before we played.
Okay.
And it's closed on Sunday.
That's right.
And so we got to walk out on the course and get your picture taken, and that was a neat trip all on its own. Go to the museum we have there at the Old Course Museum, R&A Museum, the R&A Museum. It was really a neat trip.
Definitely worth the trip. And had so many incredible artifacts. You could stay in there for a very long period of time. I liked the one particular section that was focused around the astronauts and the moon and some of the things that's happened in outer space that were tied to golf. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. Now, just a little side trip here. You just got back from the Ryder Cup, which is another
Yes.
amazing trip to Rome, right?
Yes, I was very fortunate to go. My wife and I went to Whistling Straits a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the electricity, and it's a little bit like a maybe a tailgate party, college tailgate party on steroids, maybe.
Right.
But when we left Whistling Straits, my wife and I were walking out to our rental car, and at the same time we looked at each other and says, "We're going to Rome." And she couldn't make it on this particular trip in the last minute, but I went, stayed at an Airbnb about 1.5 miles from the Coliseum, did a lot of walking, and then, of course, the Ryder Cup. You know, we would want as Americans a different result, but I'm glad I went. I met people from all over the world. I met some folks from London, from Ireland, and already we've been emailing each other and planning on getting together. I plan to go back over sometime next year to Scotland, and but I enjoyed the Ryder Cup. I enjoyed the crowds were much larger than what we had at Whistling Straits. Europe being so vast and diverse, there was a lot of people that showed up, but people were very friendly. This group from London felt bad that I was one of the few Americans in that section of the number 1 tee yelling, so they said, "We're going to help you out." So they actually yelled USA a few times. So that was the camaraderie that existed, the spirit that existed.
Yeah, world peace.
Yeah, exactly.
What was interesting watching on television, one of the things was the shots of Rome from like 10 miles away. It's kind of hilly.
It really
You were
is.
kind of looking over there, and there was St. Peter's, and
Yes.
then I think they even showed the Coliseum. You could see it.
You could.
From
It
10
was- it
miles
was
away.
beautiful.
And you never think I never think of looking
Right.
at Rome from 10 miles away, and so that was kind of cool.
It was very unique. I went in a little bit later than I did on the other days on Sunday, and you know, you go in early in the morning, it's dark, you're not going to see anything. But Sunday was kind of cool that I went in late because I saw those views as we were getting closer to Marco Simone. I loved the golf course. I thought it was a handsome golf course. I thought it was a very good test, and they did a very good job. And they were very intentional. When I say they, the Italian Golf Association, the tourism over there, very intentional that they want to grow the game of golf, and this was their stage. This was their center stage, and I would anticipate a lot of people getting into it. As I live, you know, staying in an Airbnb and kind of talking to the locals as
That's
you go up
cool.
and down,
Yeah.
and you go to a cafe. They said, yeah, they were so excited. A couple of ladies told me they were so excited that all the things they had always hosted was either soccer or football, that sort of thing. They were happy to get something new and exciting that they didn't really know a whole lot about, but they were excited to learn about it.
Yeah, I don't, you know, like Costantino Rocca
Yes.
is the only guy I can think of.
Yeah.
Well, the Molinaris,
Yes.
they're Italian, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, that's something. Switching back, why the never-ending mystique with Ben Hogan? Like, this show will probably get good ratings just because I'm going to advertise it as about Ben Hogan. Do you have any thoughts on that, Paul?
He was such a private man, number one.
Okay.
And he was such a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And he didn't give a lot away. I mean, tips.
No.
He probably did indirectly, but, you know, he never said this was the secret. So I think that is part of the mystique. But he was a different guy.
Well, he
you know?
kind of knew marketing too. He I think he knew, wink, wink. You know, the secret. I think
Yeah.
he knew that. You know, I had an opportunity, Courtney, to go over and visit with John Grace.
Oh, good.
And
Yes.
a writer from. I'm not recalling his name makes me. I apologize to him right now, but he's from Princeton. He's very well educated. He's writing a book on Mr. Hogan, and this story absolutely blew me away. And that is, I know Bill Halstead from Wichita Falls, wonderful amateur golfer, won the
One of the
1970
best
state
in
amateur,
Texas,
one of the
yeah.
best. And he was at a member guest with John Grace, and they were in the 19th hole, chit-chatting, and Mr. Hogan came over to their table and said, "Do you mind if I join y'all?" And he sat down with John Grace and Bill Halstead, and he told Bill Halstead everything he had ever played in and won.
Wow.
And that Hogan loved golf just like we love golf. He followed golf just like we follow golf. And I got home from that visit with John, and I called Halstead and I said, "I've known you for a long time. You never told me." He said, "Well, it only happened once." I said, "Well, my goodness, most people never get to talk to Ben Hogan." He talked to him for over an hour in that setting. And it just allowed me I contend that Hogan's secret was he was just a wonderfully nice man. And he had this aura that everybody, perpetuates, if you will. But he was devoted to his craft, and he was as good as they get. And the first man really to ever practice. Do you realize that? They never used to practice much.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Merritt and those guys. They thought that was weird to go hit balls and stuff. So, I don't know. Now you've been a pro in Fort Worth all these years. It never gets old, does it?
No, it doesn't. And one of my first memories and impression of Mr. Hogan was Mike Wright was kind enough to. Right. I was playing there as a guest, and he took me back to the bag room, and he showed me Ben's clubs.
Yeah.
Beautiful Hogan bag, red, white, and blue, and took some clubs out, and man, they were heavy, and the grip was over there hard left, a cord grip, and it was kind of a cool thing and then I would see him from a distance, and sometimes when I played with a member, he would come over and visit, so I got to have some cordial conversations with him, nothing like the journey that Mr. Leonard has had, but I just enjoyed, I think when you asked him about what is the mystique, I think one of it is just that he played at such a high level. He played so well, and I think people are attracted to greatness. And he definitely had a platinum level of greatness.
Great point.
And one of my personal favorite things, and I'm biased, is as I mentioned earlier, I think that Texas fingerprints reach a long way in this game of golf. In Fort Worth.
Yes.
Fort Worth. I mean, the clubs here have supported the PGA players, the LPGA players, the Kathy Whitworth, the junior golfers. The City Junior in Fort Worth is very famous, very well known, and very well supported by all the clubs in Fort Worth. So the game of golf really reaches a long way. And you think about Dan Jenkins being a World Hall of Fame rider, and how many years he covered the Masters. You think about Lance Barra, who his first broadcast from Frank Jerkernigan was the 96 or 97 Masters that Tiger won. There's a lot of people, amateurs and professionals, teachers, that have been a part of Texas golf in the history of the game. And I feel very blessed and very fortunate to be in Fort Worth and to be involved with the game. And I can see it continue to grow, and I look for great things in the future. I really do.
Yeah, and there's such a small world, because I'm reading about on newspaper.com, and my friend that's the writer that's working on the book on Hogan, and we're reading about the Fort Worth pros back in Hogan's early days.
Yes.
And one of them is, and I'm having another brain freeze right now, but he was the man that taught Nicholas. What was the
Jack Grout.
Jack Grout. Jack and Grout and his brother were pros in Fort Worth. They were from Oklahoma City, I think. They were somewhere. And so before he ever went to Scioto, he was the pro at Glen Gardens, and I just thought, wow, yeah.
Right.
And so he's in there, he shot 72, and Ben shot 71, it's amazing. And,
it really is.
Yeah, and then again, kind of circling back to your family too, and building that Colonial, and having John Breedemus, the father of Texas golf. Google John Breedemus, ladies and gentlemen. He designed Colonial, and then having Perry Maxwell come in and do the horrible horseshoe,
right,
to get the U.S. Open in Fort Worth in 1941.
Yes.
That was the real coup.
That was. Talk a little bit about that.
See, Marvin was a member at Rivercrest, and he kept bugging those guys. You need to put in Bent.
Is that right? Okay.
And they really got tired of hearing him. They finally said, well, if you want a Bent course, go build your own. So that's what he did. He went and built Colonial. And that's how Bent got to Fort Worth, or got in Texas for that matter. But he would go to the Broadmoor, he'd go to Monterey Peninsula on vacations with his family in the summers, and that's where he fell in love with it. And
I thought it was up in the Northeast. It was actually out west. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to do this. And so, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And then he did it again. And then he did it again. And something about Ben. If he liked you, he'd help you. And I remember this. I may have been the only person that got a lesson inside the 19th hole. I was about 15 years old. And you'd go in the evenings, and they're all sitting around smoking and playing gin rummy and drinking whiskey. And Uncle Marvin's there, and Eddie Childs, and Ben, and
Eddie Childs,
and you know, a lot of the local, probably Tex Moncrief, and sitting around drinking gin and playing gin. And Uncle Marvin said, "How you playing ball?" And I said, "Oh, I'm having a bad day." And Ben looked up and said, "Well, what's the matter?" I said, "Well, I just can't hit it far enough. I'm just, you know, I don't know what to do." And I was just 15 years old. He said, "Come over here," and he took his belt off, and I thought he was going to whip me. Really? And he tied my arms together like that with his belt. He said, "Never let your arms get any further apart than that, to the whole swing." And then he got me swinging a club in the 19th hole. It wasn't just 2 or 3 times; it was for 5 minutes, tying my arms to my body, and where that's, you know, this is the center of power for him.
oh my gosh,
And it was the centrifugal force theory. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And of course, I was 15 years old. I didn't know how close to greatness I was at the time. I mean, I was impressed he knew Arnold Palmer. To me, that was more impressive to me than knowing what he did at that time.
Right.
But anyway, I'll never forget. He put my hands on that club. He said, "Never move them like that," and that was really impactful for me.
I tell you what.
I let him down. I didn't turn out to be a very good golfer, but I do remember those.
Well, he could never understand why Dan Jenkins wanted to be a writer, not a pro golfer. Because
Yeah.
Dan Jenkins was a really good player when he was a young man, and probably stayed that way for a long time.
Yeah.
But that's what a great lesson here, folks, on Hit It Where They Mow. Keep your arms close to your body. That makes you rotate as opposed to just moving your arms, which I have a problem
It's
doing.
not an arm game.
Right, it's not. There's no power in that.
And I have brought you all the way from Scotland a Carnoustie ball marker, Pat. So
You are a gentleman. That is really
don't
nice.
use it unless you're going to make the putt.
Right. Well, you know, we talked about this a little bit before the show. It was 1986. I have not been back to Carnoustie, but I got there. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was on a trip with A.R. Perez and his dad from San Antonio, and I like to say Fort Worth is the greatest golf town in Texas. Byron, Bend, Colonial.
Correct.
It's hard to beat that.
Very hard to beat that.
San Antonio is a close second. The Texas Open, Oak Hills.
Right.
But we got over there, and as I said, we teed off and looked over there, and there were families playing miniature golf together. Not putt-putt, but miniature golf. And I'm still sure they have those courses, right?
They do. I don't think it's across the street anymore, but
Well,
it's just right outside the hotel.
Yeah.
And it's a generous square footage of a large putting green, and it is fun to see the families out there.
It's
Yeah, we
probably
saw
an
that.
acre, isn't it, Courtney?
Yeah,
It's
probably one of the first things I saw when I came out of the hotel. It caught my attention. Over there.
Yeah. But one other little funny Carnoustie story, and I admire this man. But my buddy and I, we stay at the Cameron House there in St. Andrews. It's about 3 or 4 blocks from the first tee there at St. Andrews. And Elizabeth was she used to run it. She's a wonderful lady, and her daughter Donna now runs it. But anyway, Butch Harmon rented out their entire B&B for one British Open. She says, "I'll never do that again. Too much pressure." And so anyway, she said the cook was kind of getting into the sauce a little bit, and she had to go in and help cook. And said some dish, and this gentleman comes into the kitchen and he says, "I need the recipe for such and such. That was wonderful." And she said, "You look familiar to me." And he said, "Well, maybe if I roll up my pants, you'll recognize me." It was Jean Van de Velde.
That's a good story.
And he hit it, as we know, in the burn there on 18
It was
at
tempting to
Carnoustie.
get my picture down there in that berm.
Well, roll your pants up.
Yeah, roll my pants up.
So the history there, it just continues. And
My caddy Scott took me over there and showed me that, and he took me into the bunker where he got into the bunker and then got up
Yeah.
and down to get into the playoff. And I hope U.S. Customs is listening, but I happened to scoop a little sand out of the bunker on 18, and it's in my office.
Well, I maintain that steel railing about that wide cost him the British Open because he flew that ball into that grandstand.
Yeah.
And if it just hits in there and rattles around, he's going to drop it over there, right?
You're probably right.
But fate or whatever it is,
yeah.
golf is just such a
I remember watching that live.
brutal game sometimes.
I remember watching it live, and I think the engraver had to buff it out and recarve it. I think they've got that in a documentary or something I've seen, perhaps on the Golf Channel.
I'll tell you something else they're doing over there I meant to mention. They have a deal called Courtney Golf Memories, and it is for men and women who are suffering from dementia. And they have a little luncheon for them it's either every week or every month. They come in, and they will show them tournaments, or they'll talk about future past tournaments that they've had, and they go out and putt and stimulate their brain.
That's fantastic.
And they have taken that to old soccer players and old rugby players. It's like a ministry. They started with golf, and they've gone out to all these other sports.
So how would I Google that? Like golf therapy for dementia or whatever?
Probably so. Probably
pop up.
Yeah. But it's
That's a great idea.
A wonderful deal that they've done.
Yeah, and I feel like I've got a skosh of it because I can't remember the guy that's writing that book about Hogan, but that's okay. You know,
one other footnote about Carnoustie, not as good as that one, but they have the oldest ladies golf association in Europe.
Wow.
Maybe in the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
And when I was playing with a couple of the lady members, Kim, my wife, and I were playing with them.
Wow.
They were sharing that with me, and Kim went over to a luncheon with them over there. They have a little clubhouse or golf house, if you will,
just
right across the street.
outside the putting green.
Yeah, just outside the putting green.
Yeah.
And they informed me that to be careful about bragging about it and not say they're the oldest ladies playing golf, but they're the oldest ladies golf association playing golf, and I got a kick out of that.
Well, you know, we're kind of scatter shooting here, but that's okay because there are a lot of things that people may not have heard about. But you know, they look down on riding in a golf cart. So we're over there playing one of the courses, Wallasey or one of the ones there in England, and these two guys go out to play golf, and they're probably my age, but they looked really old at the time. Maybe they were in their late 70s, and they played an alternate shot.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, okay, we're going to walk 18, but we're not going to hit it 100 times. We're going to hit it 50 times each. And that was their way of a little softer game, you know, a little less strenuous.
And good pace of play.
It is, and so now you have, you know, that's the most difficult format to play in. We saw it in the Ryder Cup. I've played in it before. It'll end friendships.
And you'll go over your quota with apologies.
You hit it off the tee, now I got to go hit it.
And you take a counselor with you.
Right. I wanted to tell everybody a little bit about Mira Vista, what a wonderful golf course you have over there. And
thank you.
Probably one of the highlights of my 10-year run in radio was having Tom Weiskopf on for an hour. And I'm not sure if was it Jay and Tom that did that or just Tom? It was Jay Morris and Tom
Weiskopf both did it.
But
it's a wonderful club.
It is,
really
and
is.
they always have the one drivable par 4, which I know is number 16.
Correct, you're right.
Right.
Got a good memory.
Yeah.
It's a very good test of golf. It puts a premium on a tee shot, and its defense mechanisms or the subtle greens have a subtle break. And I'm very appreciative of the members really get golf there. They're very supportive of our junior programs. And we host the Kathy Whitworth, and it's just the ideal spot for me. And it's grown.
You've been there how long?
Well, this month I'll start my 18th year there. And very appreciative of the professionals that went ahead of me. When I came on board, I just wanted to be a good steward of it and take good care of it. And I've got a good team, and we have good leadership at the club. So it's a wonderful place. It has a very good vibe about it.
Yeah, it's got a very good facility, and of course, I'll always be endeared to you for the Oracle Club.
Oh, those guys are great. Jim Smith.
How many golf clubs have a literary club?
Yeah, they do.
Hey, I got to give you something for that, and I got to talk about my book and had a little Q&A, and Courtney sold me about 20 books that night, so I'll always be indebted to you. So
I appreciate that. They're a good group, and they had that Christmas dinner. They bring their wives, and they're an integral part of our membership.
Okay, before we wrap up, we had a lot about the golf history, your love of the game, your give back. I like to ask people a couple things. One, what is it about golf that is so attractive? What is it that lures people, or what is it about the game that makes it the game we love? What would you say?
You commune with nature.
There you go.
You level a playing field when you're on a golf course with a guy, a man, a group,
Sure.
or whatever. You forget about whatever was in the past, and it's
Yeah.
a pure relationship at that point.
That's it.
It's just a great walk, and you get to enjoy the thrill of occasionally hitting a good shot, you know.
You
So all
nailed
that.
it. You nailed it. I said it was fourfold, and you're the first person that's hit all four. But maybe there'll be a fifth thing. Courtney.
There's three things that stand out to me.
Yeah.
I just love the relationships that are built and
That's
the
right.
challenge of the game.
Right.
And you get better when you embrace the challenge.
Right.
We don't get better if we want an easy way out.
Right.
And I would have to say what golf does, the impact it makes in communities. There is not another sport that raises the dollars for communities like the game of golf. I mean, there's just no comparison. I was told by a PGA Tour official years ago that you can add up, and I love the other professional sports. I'm not knocking them, but you
I
can add up
understand.
professional baseball, basketball, football, hockey, and golf will outgive all of those organizations together. So the relationships, I love the families that go out and play golf together, mother, daughter, mother, son, father, son. There's great dynamics in that as well. And I'm really excited about the future. I mean, right here in Texas, the home of the PGA
Yeah.
relocated here.
I just went out and saw it. It's impressive.
How they're going to grow the game. I know the tournament's going to get big headlines. I get that, and that they should. But it's the intangibles that are really going to celebrate the game and grow the game.
Yeah, and they've got an element out there that's not expensive, and that is that dance floor.
Right.
You can go out there, take your putter, and then go
It's very
eat or
intentional.
shop.
It's very intentional to try to get people introduced.
Well, you did bring a fifth lever in there, and that is the benefit of the community.
Yes.
Well, for instance, if you go to the First Tee facility in Fort Worth,
Yes.
Yeah.
it is so impressive. And with this built one in Willow Park, I don't know if you knew that or
Oh
not.
yeah,
There are two of them in Fort
I love
Worth.
Willow Park.
And it's one of the finest in the nation. And what they're doing for those kids, it's wonderful.
You're spot on.
Who ever thought of the 9 traits with the swing sequence of Ben Hogan? That was brilliant. And they replicated it at Willow Park. And
It's the
the
nine
virtues.
principles.
Yeah, the 9 principles. But I like to say, number 1 in golf is friendship.
Yes.
The people you get to be friends with. Number 2 is the beauty. You're outside, fresh air is pretty. Number 3, competition, and really competition against yourself is the primary thing.
No doubt.
And then 4th, he alluded to it, every once in a while I hit a shot I like.
Yeah.
Well, the flight of the ball.
Yep.
There's something magical about I'm going to hit it over that tree and hook it over there, over that bunker, onto the green. And you do it.
Right.
It's something you produced yourself.
Right.
You didn't get any help with. You
That's
did it
right.
yourself. That's the reward.
Nobody guarding you, but you still have to do it, right? Yeah. Well, guys, this has been fun. I hope we did justice to your trip. I think we got some pictures that'll be up. You took the initiative and you did some really wonderful historical work. 70 years. I was on the planet, but just crawling around when he did that.
And you know, most of those people had only heard, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to
it's
get this
good.
in, had only heard second and third hand stories about Mr. Hogan.
Yeah.
So we went over with personal experiences.
Yes.
And that's what they were looking for. They wanted to hear it from
Yes.
the horse's mouth. So that was very meaningful to them.
Yes.
You know, Tim Scott got up and talked about, he was his sales manager at the Hogan Company and shared
I
a
need
lot
to get
about
him
that.
on this show. Yeah.
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 So that was a big plus for them to hear about, you know, the real man, who he was.
Yeah, and as I said, he was a very nice man. And, you know, John Grace dispelled another myth about Hogan. I'll go ahead and share it now. I had heard that when he did the Trophy Club, you know, he was a perfectionist and it didn't turn out the way he wanted to, and he just said the heck with it. And John said no. It was a confluence of bad things. The economy was way off in the early 70s. They couldn't sell anything, and he just built it at the wrong time.
That's right.
But I know that you know, he built. I still want to go play that golf course. He built 18 holes out there, right? He designed 18.
Yeah, it's a nice layout.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Paul Leonard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney Connell. Is it Connell or?
It's Connell.
Connell.
I'll
okay.
answer to anything.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And look forward to maybe having you back on again. But you've been wonderful sharing this trip to Scotland. And we'll do more golf history on Hit It Where They Mow in our next episode. We appreciate you watching today. Hit It Where They Mow, talking golf in Texas. We'll see you next week.